Laura and I had been together for a little over a year when we decided to move in together. It wasn't something I planned for, really. I'd been comfortable in my small apartment, and she had a cozy place of her own across town. But after months of late nights at one another's places and more toothbrushes and socks migrating back and forth than I cared to count, we figured it was time. She was the kind of person who made the world brighter. She could make a bad day good just by showing up. She wasn't perfect, of course. No one is. But she was the kind of person you wanted around. When she laughed, it lit up a room. When she smiled, you felt like everything was going to be okay. So when we moved into a slightly larger place together, I was excited. My brother Kyle thought it was too fast. He said moving in with someone was the quickest way to ruin a good thing. "You're going to find out all the weird stuff she does," he warned, "and you're not going to like it." I laughed him off. I didn't believe him. For the first couple of weeks, things were great. We were in that honeymoon phase where even the quirks you notice feel endearing. She'd always hog the blankets at night, and I'd find her socks tucked into the strangest places. But it was all part of her charm. We were happy. Then I started noticing the whistling. It wasn't much at first. I'd catch her doing it while she was cooking or in the shower. A little tune, always the same, looping again and again. It wasn't loud or intrusive. In fact, it was kind of cute, like she had her own personal soundtrack. The melody wasn't anything I recognized, just a few repeating notes that sounded faintly nostalgic, like something you'd half remember from a dream. But as time went on, I realized just how often she did it. It wasn't just in the shower or when she was cooking. She'd whistle while folding laundry, scrolling on her phone, even when she was staring out the window. At first, I didn't mind. It was just a little background noise, a harmless habit. But the more I heard it, the more it got stuck in my head. It was hard to explain. The tune wasn't unpleasant exactly. If anything, it was almost too catchy, but it burrowed into my brain in a way that felt wrong. I found myself whistling it absent-mindedly when I was at work or out running errands. It was like the melody had become part of me, echoing in my head even when Laura wasn't around. One night, while we were lying in bed, I asked her about it. "What's that song you're always whistling?" She looked at me, her brow furrowing. "What song?" "The one you're always whistling," I said. "You do it all the time. It's been stuck in my head for days." She laughed softly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't whistle that much." I wanted to argue, but the look on her face told me she wasn't lying. She genuinely didn't seem to realize how often she did it. I shrugged it off, telling myself it wasn't a big deal. Everyone has little habits they don't notice. This was just one of hers. No harm done, right? But over the next few weeks, the whistling started to feel different. It wasn't just something I heard now and then. It was constant. I'd hear it when I was trying to work, trying to read, trying to sleep. I couldn't escape it. It was always there, faint but insistent, just loud enough to pull my focus from whatever I was doing. It wasn't just the tune anymore. It was the way it seemed to follow me. If Laura was in the shower, I'd hear it coming from the bathroom. If she was cooking, it echoed through the kitchen. But sometimes I'd hear it when she wasn't around. When I was alone in the apartment, the soft whistle drifting through the walls like a ghost. I started to lose patience. One night, After hours of struggling to finish a report for work, I snapped. I marched into the living room where Laura was watching TV, and I told her she needed to stop. "Stop what?" she asked, her voice calm but confused. "The whistling," I said, louder than I meant to. "You've been doing it all night." She frowned. "I'm not whistling." "Yes, you are," I said. "I can hear it. You've been whistling that same damn tune for hours." She stared at me for a long moment before shaking her head. "I think you're hearing things," she said, turning back to the TV. Her words hit me like a slap. Was she messing with me? Or did she really not realize what she was doing? Either way, it didn't feel like the woman I'd fallen in love with. I stormed back to my office, fuming. The days that followed were worse. I started avoiding Laura, spending most of my time in the bedroom with the door closed. But even there, I couldn't escape the whistling. It was softer now, more distant. But it was always there, like it was coming from inside my own head. I started wearing headphones, blasting music just to drown it out. But the tune slipped through the cracks. The breaking point came one night when I was already on edge. I came downstairs to find Laura standing in the kitchen cooking dinner. She was whistling, louder this time, the same maddening tune. "Laura," I said, my voice shaking, "can you please stop?" She turned to face me, her expression blank. "I'm not whistling," she said flatly. "Yes, you are," I shouted. "You're doing it right now." Her lips curled into a faint smile, but her eyes didn't match. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said softly. Something inside me snapped. Before I knew what I was doing, I grabbed the cast iron skillet from the counter and swung it at her. The sound of the impact was sickening. She crumpled to the floor, her head hitting the edge of the counter on the way down. Blood pooled around her, dark and viscous. For a moment, the apartment was silent. Then I heard it. The tune, soft, faint, but unmistakable. My heart stopped. I looked down at Laura's body. Her lips were moving. She was still whistling. I backed away, my hands trembling. The whistling grew louder, echoing off the walls, filling the apartment. It was everywhere, relentless, unending. I screamed at her to stop, but she didn't. She couldn't. It's been 2 days now. Laura's body is still lying in the kitchen, her unseeing eyes fixed on the ceiling. She hasn't moved, but the whistling hasn't stopped. It's louder than ever, drilling into my skull, driving me insane. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know how to make it stop. But if it doesn't, I'm afraid of what I might do next.